Welcome, everyone. I am super grateful you're here. This is a really special session for me because the presenter of this offering is my dear friend, Silke Rose West. And you might hear us having a really similar accent. That's because we're both grew up in Germany and we happen to live in the same little mountain town now. And I'd love to introduce her really briefly before we start in her session around grief and ancestral healing. And so Silke is a Waldorf teacher, an educator, and a mother to two daughters. One we might get to meet in the session. She's planning to come. I don't see her here yet. Silke is also a ceremonialist and a moon dancer with the grandmothers in Mexico. Silke is a gifted storyteller, a community organizer, and the co-author of the book, How to Tell Stories to Children. And for me, Silke really embodies this energy of like the wise elder as a guide to explore our deeper stories, heal as a collective, and welcome all the parts of being human as medicine. She's one of the most spirited and authentic female leaders I know, with a really inspiring life story, going through so many different phases and cycles and holding it all. And I'm just really inspired by the grace that I see come through her in the way she lives. And I'm super excited for you to meet her today. I was blessed to go with her on several in-person light walks, and I'm really happy that we get to do this in this format today. And I'm really curious and just super happy you're here. Thank you, Silke. Here we go.
I took off my reading glasses so I could look through the eyes of the grandmother and not have quite such clear vision of all the little details on the computer. But maybe I'll keep them on for a little bit. Thank you all. Yuli opened the door to Kalapa, and when I first opened the screen and looked and listened to what Alan said, like, host a better party, I'm like, absolutely, that sounds wonderful. This is what the world needs right now. And then Yuli said, where do you want to stand? What direction of the wheel would you like to stand in? And I'm like, I had actually no hesitation to say, I want to stand in the Northwest. And as you all know, the Northwest is the place of the ancestors, and it's also the place of grief. And I have to say, I'm a kindergarten teacher, and I have been working with little ones for over 30 years. And one time I worked with green burial, and I worked with a group that was talking about how we carry our people to their threshold. And there was an old grandmother, and she looked at me and said, Silke, you're in the wrong meeting. You're supposed to be with the little ones. And I'm like, no, I'm in the right meeting because it's connected. My understanding of what the little ones need is exactly the gift that helps us to stand in this place of joy when we come to the place of the Northwest and to the North, and when we walk towards our own dying. There is something in that is so incredible when we understand the connection of it, because it helps us actually to come full circle with joy and to let go of that place of like, oh help, I'm going to lose something. Oh help, I might not do it right. I'm going to be alone. I am a storyteller. I'm a kindergarten teacher. I have to use those gifts today to take you to that place. So I'm going to invite you. I'm going to first use my drum. And I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and to actually picture yourself in the womb of the mother. You're not born yet. You're in the womb of the mother. And all you hear is the heartbeat. And I would like to invite you to go to that place with me. And then I will wake you up with a song. When we're born, we cry, and the world rejoices. I live my life so that when I die, the world cries and I will rejoice. When we're born, we cry, and the world rejoices. I'll live my life so that when I die, the world cries and I will rejoice. When we're born, we cry, and the world rejoices. I'll live my life so that when I die, the world cries and I will rejoice. When we're born, we cry, and the world rejoices. I'll live my life so that when I die, the world cries and I will rejoice. Welcome, little ones from all over the world. Little ones born in the East, little ones born in the South, little ones born in the West, little ones born in the North. You are precious. You are the hope. You bring so much joy to this world. You are a little one. You may be sitting in your aging body, but you are a little one. And when you came to this earth, there were eyes that beheld you and looked at your beauty. And they gazed at you in awe and wonder because you were a miracle. And it was magical to hear the sound of your voice for the first time. When your voice sounded the first time, it was like a miracle. This baby has a sound. When your fingers were counted to see whether all 10 of them were there, it was a gift. There was the understanding this is a child that can give and receive. It has 2 hands, 10 fingers. You have these still today in your aging body. What a gift. When your little toes were counted, And one could imagine that this little child would one day travel all around the earth on these little feet. It was a gift. Perhaps you still have that gift to this day. It's true blessing. I invite you to feel the earth beneath your feet. I invite you to feel this blessing that we have. And in that stepping on the earth, feeling that the earth actually is the mother now. We have come out of the womb, and now all of a sudden we feel that mother under our feet each and every day. The ways of the moon dancers, the grandmothers in the south in Mexico, they lift their feet with such lightness and they dance, for they say the earth is so happy when she feels our feet on her. The mother makes me want to dance. But dear friends, I have grown up in a place where people oftentimes did not lift their feet anymore. My grandparents have grown up in the First World War. They were little, and by the time they raised their own children, they were in the Second World War. Their feet were heavy. Their feet oftentimes did not know how to lift and dance anymore. When I was born into this world of these post-war generations, I realized we have feet to dance. We have a song to tell stories, but I realized no one is telling stories. I had to go into the church to listen to the priests telling stories about Jesus from a long time ago. I wanted to hear stories from the people. I wanted somebody to still look at my hands and say, look at her, she has gifted hands. But the time came, people looked at my hands and said, they're not working enough. Hurry up, your feet are too slow. But I still had 10 toes on my feet, and I still felt that my feet were a gift. How come the people couldn't see it? And I went into the church and I sang with all of the strength of my voice, because I'm like, my voice is so beautiful. It was given to me so I can praise the Lord. And I sang so loud with the innocence of this little child that praises God just through song. But my brother said, sister, quiet, you sing too loud. And I'm like, okay, all right. I sang too loud. I didn't walk fast enough. My hands didn't produce enough. And that was the message that was slowly given to me. I went to the graveyard and I realized there is time. People have time on the graveyard. And I sat on the graves of the people and I sat by them and I'm like, you have time for me. You understand that my life is a blessing. Thank you. And I listened to the stories of the people that died when I came to this earth. And there was one woman that died. She was in the hospital and she wanted to hold me. But you know, she had cancer and they didn't know if cancer was contagious. And they said, no, you cannot hold her. Maybe she's gonna get cancer from you. And I went to her grave and I said, I'm sorry that they didn't let you hold me. I'm sorry that you had to leave without feeling the life energy of me. I would have given you something. You could have given something to me. But she was ever present, even just on the graveyard. She appeared to me later in my life again. When I was in a severe trauma of my own marriage. And she became my spirit mom. She was always there. She was always there and she let me know, do not let yourself be abused. It's not right. That's why I had to leave. Do not let yourself be abused. And I thought, why would I even ever think that letting myself be abused would be okay? Am I not a child of this earth that has these miraculous hands and this beautiful voice and these beautiful feet? And I felt into my heart and I longed for understanding. And she said, go and do some grief counseling. I'm like, I don't need grief counseling. Why would I need grief counseling? No one before me ever needed grief counseling. That's a silly thing. Go, you need some grief counseling. And upon this time of grief counseling, I stumbled upon someone named Martin Brechtel, who lives in our neck of the woods. And he wrote a book called Grief and Praise. We talked about when we grieve and really grieve the loss, then we can cry, and that crying, those tears, they release something, and in that releasing it, there can be new joy can be born, and we can all of a sudden come back and feel life. But if the grief is not expressed, it's going to start to drown something. It's going to actually suppress something. The little me in the village that was born in Germany in the post-war, raised by post-war generations, that little me. And I became a teenager, that little me started to, instead of singing in the church out loud, I started to sing Jewish songs on stage, Yiddish songs. I wanted to sing for the people that once lived on this earth, that once danced and lit their menorahs. I'm like, I will light a menorah. I will sing your songs. I will honor all those that have danced and lived here. And I will pray that I will have the strength, if I ever should have to face something like this in my life, to do right and to be standing in a place of truth. And that prayer gets sometimes answered in ways that is hard to understand, because life will put us to the test so that we can start to have forgiveness, and that we can start to have this feeling of compassion for the perpetrators. And then I realized this perpetrator lives within my own being. I also realized this victim lives within my own being. I am the descendant of the perpetrator. I am the descendant of the victim. And yet, how can they hold hands with one another? And I had to look back to my ancestors. And I had to look back and say, I need help. They said, well, go up on the mountain. And I'm like, what shall I do there? They say, go and sit. I went to my grief counselor and I said, we have gone for a whole year. I need to go up on the mountain and sit. And he said, well, what about me? I said, well, I was thinking I should sit with two men. I think you're one of them. And I went with my grief counselor and another friend up on the mountain to sit for 4 days without food and water. And the grief counselor said, thank you. I needed to come up here too. He had lost both of his daughters and his wife and his brother. And he is a hero in our neck of the woods because he survived it and he is living, and he became a grief counselor out of the love for his daughters that died, out of the love for his wife that died of cancer. And when we had to bring someone to be our support on our vision quest, which was our willingness to go up on the mountain and to be willing to die, he brought his friend, who was the funeral home director. And I brought my friend as my support. She was a midwife. And we looked at each other and we said, we have all we need. We have the funeral director and we have the midwife. Well, we just fine. We can die and be reborn at the same time. And that is what happened. We went up on that hill, and all of a sudden I was allowed to feel the mother again. The mother that had time. I was afraid of the dark. I was afraid of shadows. But the mother helped me and said, you don't need to be afraid. When the morning sun rose, it was the feeling of my father. And my father is a hard man, not a soft and gentle man. But he was all of a sudden represented in the sun that rose over the mountain and was warming my body and was present. And the father was present for me, just like the mother was present that I was sitting upon. In the distance was my friend, the grief counselor. I couldn't see him, but he looked over towards my place where I was sitting and he saw the mountain lion approach. And he thought, Silke will be fine. I know her. This mountain lion is just a spirit animal coming to visit her. That's good. Not once during the 4 times up on the hill did I experience any fear. And then in the night, in the third night, I experienced winds, crazy winds, fierce winds. And these winds, they reminded me of my fierce brother, who has a craziness about him. And again, then I thought these winds have shaped the landscape of New Mexico. New Mexico is the land of enchantment. If you stand on top of the mountain, the winds come and they shape you. And they are purifying, they're brushing away what you don't need. And sometimes we, in the native people and people who dance in the moon dance, we have the winged ones. They come to us. This is the wing of an owl. And they come to us, and when they come to us, they're like, come on, the energy of the wind, the winged ones, we will help you. Daughter of mine, you're sitting here on this earth. You have so much grief. It feels like you're carrying the grief of the world. Let us help you. We will give you something from our dear winged ones. Take it, use it as medicine. The winged ones, they are very much part of the dances. When you look at the dances of the Native American people and all that they have survived over all these years, the winged ones have never left them. They are with them. When you look at the people of this land, their riches are not in so much the material possession, but is in the medicine that they carry that will help them and their families to live and to survive. And the prayer is strong. There's a reason I came to New Mexico and I understood. And I said, teach me, teach me. And the first, there was a tremendous teaching that was given to me that I want to share with you, but I need to get some tissues because I did not prepare to cry, although I should have prepared for that. So one moment. Thank you for staying with me. Hmm. There was a little teacher was sent to me, a little boy named Pablo. This is very much part of our work today because Pablo was a messenger. I had taught for 30 years. Back then, 25. Pablo was brought from California to New Mexico because his father was a teacher that was hired by us. And his father came with his family of 3 children and a mother to New Mexico. And we were so happy to have them here. This family arrived. And we started to prepare for the school year, and all was so exciting. We had a teacher, we had a building, we had everything. But little Pablo, 3 years old, he did not want to come to school. So we said, well, stay home. You don't need to go to school. And he started to do things that were a little strange. He started to bonk his head on the table. And his father got angry at him and said, don't behave in that way. That's not okay. It took a little while, maybe 3-4 weeks, to understand that Pablo was sick. He had a brain tumor, but the doctors couldn't find out. I sent the father with the child to a medicine man. And the medicine man looked at the child and said, take him. He needs to be diagnosed. He will not be here much longer. And Pablo was given maybe a few months. He did live half a year, but he gave us a gift in that half a year, and I need to share that with you. Because we take life too much for granted, and we should not. Pablo, what he did is, he first of all made it very clear that he was okay to die. He just wanted to know, tell me, Daddy. And I'm saying the word daddy more than mommy because his strong connection was with daddy. He would call for his dad and he said, Daddy, am I going to die? And daddy had to say, yes, son, you will die. Daddy, when will I die? I do not know. I came into the kindergarten where I had his older sister, and the children asked me, will Pablo die? And I said, yes, he will. Is he still alive? Yes. Pablo came into the kindergarten to visit with his mama. He stopped walking. He could not walk so much anymore in the beginning. And one of the boys ran up to him and said, Pablo will always be your friend. I love you. Pablo said, sing me the song of Saint Michael. Sing me that song. In September, Michael is here. He will help us overcome our fear. Michael. The children sang. A 6-year-old boy said, I'll do a puppet show for you about Michael. Thank you, said Pablo. And he started to sleep. And he slowly stopped to lose the hands functions, and he needed to be fed. And he slowly lost the ability to speak. But while he was still able to speak, he said, Papa, take me to the airport. Take me to the airport. I want to see the airplanes taking off. And every day he was going to the airport, watching the winged ones taking off. And he understood, one day the winged ones will carry us. Papa, take me to the place where they will bury me. I will take you, my little one. Here, you will rest here where you can watch the mountain. And the little one said, this is a beautiful place, Papa, I like it. And the little one, he wanted to know, and he said, Papa, it's a beautiful place. And the children, And the parents that had signed up to be in the first grade class of this Papa, they became Papa's support. They started to come and bring food. They came to play. They became the community that he did not have. Moved far away from the parents. And all of a sudden, Pablo is coming to this time when he wants to go. At that point, his eyes look. They look only for those who matter. And then there's this one moment, and you know what happens in that one moment? We realize this moment of the gaze of the eyes that are alive, that are looking at us. What an incredible gift. It's the stars that are looking through the eyes to us here on earth. It's amazing. Pablo died and he was surrounded by his family. And the children from the school came, and one of my boys, a 6-year-old, he says, "Do not weep, he's here." And he picked up a sword that was laying next to the coffin, and he said, "Look, he's here. I feel him. He's right here." And he turned to his father and he said, "Daddy, tell a story about your grandfather who died, about your dad who died." We were all sitting around Pablo, and one of the fathers started to tell a story about his own father who died. And I was told by a woman who works with the dying, tell the stories of those who crossed over, because those are the ones that you will meet. Create someone who is on the other side that you can meet. Today we are so inundated with stories on the computer and with stories about movies and things. But what about the stories about our own ancestors? Can you go and think that you would cross over the Rainbow Bridge and you meet your grandfather? You know his name. And there is something in this crossing over and picturing that there is a community on the other side. You're not alone. When we are arriving here and the child is born, most likely there's a community around, people around. Even in our time of isolation at home, the ancestors, the ones that have crossed over, they are there. They have not left. They're important. We call on them. We call on them to be there. And they will be there and support. There will be also ancestors on the other side who will have had a hard time here on this earth journey. We will bow to them and we say, "I'm sorry it was so hard. I need to call on my strong ancestors to step forward. I need you to be strong." Mamas, if you're here on this call and you ever gave birth, I'm telling you, having almost died twice in childbirth myself, I needed people near me that would say, "Breathe, be strong. You can do this." And it's the same when we cross over. Now we're standing in the northwest of the wheel. Who are the people? There is Kalapa has formed, and there are people here that say, "Breathe. Breathe with me. Smile with me. Stretch your bodies. Feel the aliveness in your being. This is what it will take." Think about little Pablo who crossed over as a star being on the other side who said, "Wonderful, you're living, you're strong, it's your gift. I was willing to come for a short time." Rudolf Steiner said, "When children die young, they come to open the hearts of the people. They bring us back to spirituality, because sometimes we have forgotten that life is a gift. And so the teachings of Rudolf Steiner have helped me to step into that role. It was called One More Time. After Pablo's death, my marriage collapsed and it was very traumatic. My ex-husband was a survivor of the political war times in Poland and a political refugee. And I thought love can overcome all of the pain and suffering. If I marry this man and we can have children, that love will be born and it will sustain and grow. And never more will we need to know the suffering. But it was not like that. The suffering came up at one point in midlife, and he had a mental collapse and he accused me to be the Nazi. He accused his own children and it became hard. But what happened in that is the understanding also that these things, they don't, we can't just say it will go away, it will resurface. And then how do we work with it when it surfaces? How do we hold that space of trauma when trauma resurfaces? I would say we can hold it. We have to hold it in love, just like we hold the child that is ill and has to go. Oh, we hold it in love. And while the grandmother told me, while the child is alive, give him all the most beautiful energy that you can. Let him know this world is a joyful place. How do we do that with human beings that have been through tremendous trauma, that hold tremendous grief? How do we do that where we say, I hold you and I love you? And I'll let you move through the process that you need to move through. We have to protect ourselves at times. And part of the things is the kalapa too, the dancing, the movement, the strengthening our own inner core is so important. Because when we come back to have to face resurfing trauma through a loved one, we have to be strong. And my youngest daughter took on the trauma that surfaced in divorce, and she had a psychosis, and I had to stand strong in facing her. And in it, I faced the dragon, and I was reminded of the story of Saint Michael and the dragon. And my daughter was in the belly of the dragon, and she was just speaking from a place of madness. And I had to remind myself, look for the star being beyond the madness of her being. Look, look. And I looked and I said, sing with me. Her words were not nice, kind words anymore. But when she sang, I could realize she can sing with me. And in that song, I understood there is hope. And I said, draw for me. And he drew an angel. And I knew there was hope. And we moved through tremendous trauma and crisis once more. And I realized these things sometimes have to resurface so they can be healed. Today, my daughter is sitting with my parents in Germany, and she sings to them during the time of this Christmas time. They're alone. I'm in America. Our family has gone through a lot of separation, but she's coming home and she's bringing again music and love into the heart of my family in the way I can't give it. So there's generational things that keep happening. They're very, very important. And sometimes things resurface again over and over. And then for us to have the feeling of there is something right in that, I can embrace it, I can open my heart, and I don't have to be afraid. I can go out and let the wind actually purify me and take away the edges and the pain and the suffering. I can go down to the hot springs that are nearby me, and I can sit in these healing waters. And then I picture right and left, there's this majestic canyon, the Taos Canyon, the rift, the great rift where the Earth Mother at one point was split open. And today the river, the Rio Grande, runs through it. And the Rio Grande is alive because of the rift that took place in the earth. And there are on a few spots the hot springs. And again, the native people knew that the hot springs are the healing waters. Just like when we were in the womb, we had the heartbeat, and we also were surrounded by water. Water is such an healing element. When you go down into the hot springs next to the raging, roaring river, you understand why the native people would go to these springs. Because the springs, they said, it's a tough place to live. The earth is not an easy place everywhere. Here in the high desert of New Mexico, there is a lot of pain. There is a lot of things that have been stored, but nature says, I'll give you something. It's very small. It's a small little pool of water next to the roaring, raging river. Sometimes the river is not so roaring, raging. But I can go there in the winter and sit in the hot water and then go into the ice cold river water. And then I can say, thank you. I've been hurting. I've been suffering. I can't take it anymore. And the water, the pool of water is like, give it to me. I'm here. Go in the water, find your strength. You can do it. Your heart won't stop just by jumping into the cold river water. And I'm like, okay, well, let's give it a try. It takes quite some courage, but I can do it. One day I came down to the hot springs, and on the top of the hot springs, there was a car, a truck, black windows and a dead skull in the back. And I was thinking to myself, oh, that doesn't look so safe. I don't know who that is. And then I thought maybe somebody's just trying to put up a strong front so that I won't go past it. And I'm like, I don't have to be afraid. I'll go down there. So it's a steep little trail down to the hot springs. And sure enough, I hear music blasting and I smell the cigarette smoke. And I do have a little bit of judgmental self in myself, but I also did smoke a lot of cigarettes when I was young. I have lots of compassion for that. And then I listened a little bit closer to the music. And the music was powwow Native American music. And because I have been around Sundance and Moondance, I'm like, okay, there is somebody down there who understands the way of ceremony. That person that my eyes beheld did not look like someone you would necessarily want to sit with in the hot springs. But I thought, like, let me look beyond what my eyes behold. And I stepped near and I said, hello. Would you mind if I join you in these springs? And he said, well, these are the springs of my ancestors. I've been here for so long. And I'm like, well, that's so wonderful that you are willing to share the springs of your ancestors with me. I'm just like, I came from Germany. I don't even speak proper English, but I'm very grateful that you would make space for me. And I'm sitting in the pool with this man and tattoos all over. I was first a little bit taken aback. I'm like, who is this person? But I was curious, and so I let the curiosity inside of me take over. It became stronger than any doubts or judgments that I had. And I said, your music, I recognize it. It's a music of like the ceremonial dances. Would you like me to offer a song to you? I said, I'm dancing the moon dance, I have ceremonial songs too, and I would love to offer them to you. And the man said, I would be happy to receive that. And he turned off his telephone that was blasting the music. And he turned around his back to me, and I started to sing. And I all of a sudden realized there was a man sitting here who was so wounded and who so needed the song of a woman to sing to his heart for his healing. And I sang to him, and he turned around with tears in his eyes. And he took off his shirt. And I've never seen something like that. There was so much flesh hanging down. He was at one point so overweight that there was just flaps of skin. And I looked at him and he said, I have overcome so much suffering. I've lived a very bad life in my younger years. I abused, I was into drugs, I overate, I was imprisoned. I came out of prison, but there's so much trouble in my family. And I said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for your pain and your suffering. I'm glad that you found your ways to these springs. And he said, it's the springs of my ancestors. My grandfathers have been here on these springs. That's the only thing I know what to do. I said, I'm proud of you. I said, my daughter too, she fell into addiction here in this land. And he said, I'm sorry. I hope she will get well. I'll hold her in my prayers. And I said, thank you. That is so kind of you. I told him I have to stay strong. I'm afraid I'm growing older. I won't be strong enough for my daughter. And the healing path is so long. I need to go in the cold river. And he said, it's winter. I said, I know. I said, you need to hold me accountable. I want to go in that water for like 3-4 times. Can you please for 3 minutes? And can you hold me accountable? And he said, I will hold you accountable. What shall I do? I said, you time me and tell me when it's ready to come out. He said, I don't want to go in there. I don't want to die. And I said, well, you died a many different deaths before. Anyways, this man is walking on this day on the path, on a healing path. He's walking the recovery road. There are many people who walk the recovery road and they have to be so strong. But their stories, they should be heard. They're important. They're just as important as Pablo's story of his death. Our stories, your story is important. So there is so much in grief and praise. In the grief, we have to tell the story so we can cry the tears. And then the praise. The praise leads us even to praise the hard time that we have endured. Where the man looks back and says about the lessons he learned in prison. And he gives so much thanks for his life. And when Thanksgiving came around, I said to him, come, meet up with me. We will share the pipe. The pipe was given to me by the grandmothers. And it's used to heal for prayer for the earth. So we can pray for healing for the earth and for humanity. And so we did. We had a little ritual together. And I have to say, it was so beautiful. And we were sitting, and another man came, a native man from the land, and he said, hey, I'm here. These are my hot springs. And the other man of Hispanic descent said, no, these are the hot springs of my ancestors. And I looked at the two men and I said, you know what? They're not the hot springs of my ancestors, but I'm so grateful that I can be here. I want to offer a song to both of you. And I offered a song to both of these men. And they looked at each other and they looked at me, and we realized we were the children of the Earth's mother. And we did not create the division of our cultural differences. We did not need to create a division of age and all the things that could, separate us from each other. And I will share that song with you, and then I will open the floor for anyone to ask questions. And yeah, so this is the song that I shared with these two men that made them look at each other, and it's like, it's all right. And then we could picture the ancestors looking at each other and saying, it's all good. The heartbeat of the universe is dancing with my heartbeat. The heartbeat of the universe is dancing with my heartbeat. Sun and moon and wind and rain are dancing with my heartbeat. Sun and moon and wind and rain are dancing with my heartbeat. The heartbeat of the universe is dancing with my heartbeat. The heartbeat of the universe is dancing with my heartbeat. Sun and moon and wind and rain are dancing with my heartbeat. Sun and moon and wind and rain are dancing with my heartbeat. The heartbeat of the universe is dancing with my heartbeat. The heartbeat of the universe is dancing with my heartbeat. Sun and moon and wind and rain are dancing with my heartbeat. Sun and moon and wind and rain are dancing with my heartbeat. The heartbeat of the universe is dancing with my heartbeat. The heartbeat of the universe is dancing with my heartbeat. Sun and moon and wind and rain are dancing with my heartbeat. Sun and moon and wind and rain are dancing with my heartbeat. And may your heartbeat be strong. And may your heart be touched by humans on your path that make you feel joy. Yuli, if you would like to see, invite people for raising hands or questions.
Thank you, Silke, for sharing your stories. And I'm wondering, are you inviting any questions in particular, or just opening up to whatever people would like to share?
I love to walk into the unknown, and in that, I think any of the stories I told may have brought up something for you in your own heart. Maybe even a situation in your life that you would like to turn into a story, or maybe something like that. Or how can we turn whatever experience you had, where can we find grief and then the joy? What will it take to take the tremendous suffering and to come into honoring and then rising and being joyful? Yeah.
I see Luke raising his hand. Would you like to start?
Thank you, Yuli, and thank you, Silke, for a enchanting story and for your kindness, your generosity, and the way you hosted it. I feel inspired by your story, and yesterday I was dreaming about telling my grandfather and my father's story, and I'm a songwriter and making it into a long piece of music, to transform the suffering and the gifts, or to pass on the suffering and the gift, the gifts, and transform the suffering. So would you have anything for me to how might I begin?
Tell us something about your grandfather and tell us something about your father. And what is it that inspires you to actually go to that place of wanting to lift through your gift of music?
Thank you. So my grandfather would often tell me the story of how he ran away from home. His father was a violent alcoholic, and so he would tell me many times the story of being the last family member to flee my great grandfather, and how central that was to him. He didn't want to leave him, but he had to. I see he left Ireland, and I see that in my father. My father has moved back to Ireland and makes the music of his ancestors. And there's still some of that trauma that needs to be transformed, and maybe through storytelling and music that might help.
If you would write a ballad, and if great grandfather who was drawn to the spirits of alcohol and therefore got lost, and drove his love, or the love of his children, drove his own family into the distance. Could you, where would you, where can you see that? Could you see a ballad that, or how, I don't know what music you write?
Yeah, what I'm hoping to do is to write a long piece, like a folk opera.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And
Like,
so grandpa runs away to the distant land, but what he took with him, and I can so much relate to him, what he took with him is the love for the land. So your father now, he plays music. He went back home and he offers the music to the land. So the music of the land was actually stronger than the alcoholism and anger that your great grandfather had, basically, put out into the family. That he used to poison the family wells. And so your dad comes back home and he revives. The family tree is still alive. There was most likely also a great-great-grandmother or great-grandmother who was in silence, who suffered under this man. And can these women be brought back to life? Can they stand around the ancient wells that basically got poisoned through this absence of the feminine, and then the men that were getting confused and had to run and search? And now, can you call on your grandfather to stream his energy through you? I think that's one of the things with the ancestors to allow ourselves to say. So I give you an example. I at one point started to celebrate my grandmother on my mother's side, and I realized she was never celebrated because she wasn't working enough. And I'm like, well, that wasn't actually a problem for me. That was a problem for someone else. And I started to celebrate her birthday. And that year, somebody moved in my house who had the same birthday than her. And then I thought to myself, how did she survive? She must have called people on for help. So then I called a work party and I sent an invite with the story of my grandmother's life. And I celebrated her birthday by inviting people in to, you know, I invited people in to come and help me, you know. Yeah. So you can also build an ancestral altar while you are in the process of writing. And so you could build an ancestral altar and then really ask grandpa, say, grandpa, I would like to honor you in this. Can you please come to me, share with me inspirations in my dreams? Or in other ways, in nature, what was dear to your heart? Where can I find you in nature? Will I find you by the trees or by the oceans, by the water? And Kalapa is for me very much a representation of grandpa. I don't know if you have been part of Kalapa before, but it's going into this unknown world where we meet strangers. And grandpa had to trust that in this unknown world that he escapes to, that he runs away to, there will be enough help that is so strong that it can help him to rise above the pain and suffering that he had to endure by leaving the land that he loved so much. So I would also tap into the land, sit in the landscape that you feel like your grandfather can relate to, and you can relate to him.
Thank you so much, Silke. That's really inspiring, and thank you for bringing the my grandmother's and in. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Luke, and look forward to hearing or seeing whatever unfolds. That's so exciting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Julie, something came up in the chat box with grandmother being enough or something that I saw.
Yes, I think it was just someone who didn't catch in your story that you shared that your grandmother wasn't working enough. So that word working was missing. But here was another reflection or gratitude in the chat from Whitney. She says, thank you so much for your heart and your stories and your songs. I feel so connected to the tenderness and strength of my own spirit listening to you.
Thank you.
And just love to share that with you. Here's another one. I am moved by the bringing in the grandmothers, the women in our stories when they hadn't been heard.
Yeah. I could briefly speak to the grandmothers, and one of the things that I realized when I went through my marriage crisis was that when I was attacked by my ex-husband verbally, never physically, but verbally, that all of a sudden, all my strengths left me and I took on the responsibility and role of the one who is guilty. And it was like also him tapping into the Nazi thing because his family actually had been in the concentration camps and his grandmother had been in Auschwitz producing munition while his grandfather was in the concentration camp with his own dad. And so we played the war history, you could say, and I felt the guilt. I felt the guilt of now I have messed up my marriage. I'm carrying the weight of the Germans versus the Polish, and I couldn't see clearly anymore. I was so willing to be just carrying all the weight. And I needed to go to grief counseling to get it back into perspective and to stay present in the here and now. But I look back at the women in my family, and the women in my family have no voice, or they have only a voice when the men step out of the room. When the men step out of the room, the women start talking. The minute the men step into the room, the men come with a dominant voice and an all-knowing and a rulership over the family. And I was looking into what is it that made that happen. And I think during the world wars in particular, the loss of men who had to go into war, sons that died in the war, husbands that died, the women had to become so strong to survive that when the men came home, they didn't on top of them saying, hey, well, I'm so much stronger than you now, you know, you go out and whatever, take the trash out. Or they stepped back and they actually created space for the men to find their strengths again. But there was too much pain in between and they had gotten out of balance. And I think that rebalancing, I had to find that rebalancing by going down to Mexico to the moon dance, and we are 380 women dancing, and the men tend our fires. The men cook for us. The men say, we want you women to be strong. So we will tend your fire. We want you to pray. And then we have our own dance, we have the sun dance, and then we women step forward and say, we would love to cook for you and tend your fire when you do that. But it is, for me, still to this day, I feel like I have to learn in my partnership over and over again that I can stay strong in the face of the masculine and bow and say, this is your work. But I'm waiting for the other to bow to me and say, I honor the divine feminine in you. It's very important that we're arriving, because I don't want to put the men down just so that I can feel strong. And I don't need the men to put me down so they can feel strong. We need to raise each other up. And so when Luke is writing something for his, to release the lineage of males in his family, he actually is releasing the great grandmother that went into silence. He is releasing her because she couldn't probably deal with all the pain and suffering that was brought upon her by this alcoholic man. And she was probably saying, do something, somebody do something. And Luke is finally that generation that says, I can do something. I will write a song. I will surround myself with people that I can share this song and they will stream love towards my family. Not judgment for the whatever, alcoholism and everything else, but love. That's what we're doing here at Kalapa. We're streaming love towards the beings that are willing to step out. And all of a sudden, the family that was lost is surrounded by a loving community. And those that still are holding on to the family heart in the lineage, we can see them at the heart of the family tree and they're embracing each other. And there will be those who will maybe step away even in the ancestral lineage and say, I don't want to join that party. And you have to let them walk away. They're not going to run the show anymore. If they feel like there's no room for them, we have to let them walk away. It's okay. But that family tree, nurture it. And that's what we do here with Kalapa. You are today nurturing my family tree by being here with me. And if anyone still wants to step out into the open and share something, there is space for that.
Hi, Silke. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Um, I'm Melissa, and I just first wanted to say I'm feeling overwhelmed with gratitude for this time and your story. The first song you sang, I could have listened to you sing that forever. um, I'm currently in the process of trying to heal an ancestral trauma with water, and it was something I learned of my whole life. I have not enjoyed the feeling of water on my skin. The rain, sweat, being in water doesn't matter, no matter what form. And I learned it was an ancestral trauma with water. And so my question for you is if you might have any insight on something like this, any recommendation. I have written a prayer already that I pray, but I'm telling myself there's something more to do, and I'm looking for that.
Well, since you resonate with song, the water resonates with song as well. There's a song we sing every year, the Moon Dance, and I will sing it. It's a song that's sung by women, and it has been passed on by women on their deathbed to other women. I can't give you the exact, I think it comes from the Anishinaabe people. I'm not sure. It's a Nordic tribe from the North Americas. And it's called Nibi Wabu Endayan, Aki Mishkvi Nibi Wabu. The water that streams through my own being is the water of the earth. So as women, we are the water. We are carrying the water, the water that fills our womb so life can stream forth. We sing to the water, and it's all women singing. So I'm going to sing this song 4 times. We do everything in the 4 direction to honor the 4 directions and honor all of humanity. And that's what I would do. I would sing to the water. And I'll tell you one short story of how the water answered my prayer. I went into a sweat lodge, and the sweat lodge leader said to me, Silke, I want you to pray over the water. And I said, I can't. I'm not worthy to pray over the water. And then I walked away, and I felt so bad that I didn't pray over the water, because I felt like I should pray over the water if I'm asked to do that. And so I went down to the river, and I went to the river and I said, forgive me, water. I'm so sorry that I just couldn't do it. I just didn't feel worthy enough. And I walked back up from the river, and there's this one single tree standing in the gorge. And on this tree there hung a necklace that was made out of zuni beads. And it felt like this necklace was given to me by a river to honor my own feminine spirit, because I was not honoring my own feminine spirit. And so I felt like I couldn't stand in the presence of the water, which is a feminine spirit. And that necklace, I've been wearing it, and I have since then made many water blessings and water prayers in ceremonies, because usually people call on me to pray over the water. So if everybody is okay, I would share this song. And you can, normally it's supposed to be passed on only in person, but I know the song is by now also on the internet. I think some people have recorded it, but I will share it now. And as I share this song, just know it's a song to be sung by women, and this is not to exclude the men. It is really for the men to stand behind us as women and to say, we honor you for what you are doing. We honor you for giving life, and we thank you. And I would like for the men on this call to stand in that place. Picture yourself standing behind us women, and we women, we are standing around a sacred ancient well, that already has been feeding humanity all this time, and that will be, may this water be pure for all the beings that are coming into the world right now. Yeah, because we're a tribe, and a beautiful tribe. Thank you, Melissa. Bibi wapo endayam, aki mishkri nibi wabo. Heya, 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 hey. Heya, 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 oh. Bibi wabo endayam, aki mishkwi nibi wabo. Heya, 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 hey. Heya, 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 oh. Bibi wabo endayam, aki mishkwi nibi wabo. Heya, 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 hey. Heya, 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 oh. Bibi wabo endayam, aki mishkwi nibi wabo. Heya, 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 hey. Heya, 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 oh.
Thank you so much.
Tess, I see you.
Did you want to share something, Tess?
Oh. Let's see, let me move my screen here. Silke, thank you so much for all of your stories and your wisdom, and speaking back into your long experience of what you've seen and come through. And I so appreciate having the feminine energy and the elder presence that you have. And I'm grateful for for the inspiration of all of the trauma that you've witnessed, and both in your own life and that has come to you in your lineage, and how you've been able to transform so much of that in your lifetime. And it gives me a lot of hope for myself and for others to be able to do that as well. So thank you for shedding a little light on the way and the possibilities.
Thank you, Tess. Thank you.
I remember that Serena earlier wanted to share something, and I wonder if that's still present.
Thank you, Julie. Oh, I really appreciated this. Thank you so much, everyone who helped this happen, and all of the beauty and wisdom that you've shared with us. I have a lot of things that I'd love to talk to you about and share, and I feel like there's two questions that are competing to come up, but I think they might be the same question. I've had my father's mother, who I wasn't super fond of, but I loved. She died 26 years ago, and she's been very present, and I've put her at bay. I've had some conversations and interactions with her, the spirit of her, and there's just so much resistance there on my part. She was a harsh woman, and it's so hard for me to just be open to communicating with her even 26 years after she died. And I've also lost all of my family because of religious differences 20 years ago. And I know that the ancestors want to help me heal that for my line, and I want to heal it for myself and anyone else that I can help heal it for, especially my nephew and niece. So I'm wondering what you might have to share with me that could support me in that.
Do you have an altar, an ancestral altar? Yeah.
Right now, I have an altar that is specifically for that grandmother, which when I was putting it together, I didn't think about it being an altar, but I ended up putting this little table with one of her doilies that she made and some other things that were hers right on it. And after I was done putting it together, I realized I'd made an altar.
Yeah. Can you feel into the resistance that comes up between you and grandmother? What is coming up for you with that?
She was mean, and I don't want to hear mean messages.
Okay. If she wants to move in with you today, would you be excited?
No, but I would do it.
You would do it. Okay. Who could you call for help in your ancestral lineage so you could actually feel safe calling her in, because you would do it as a sacrifice for your family? You would put yourself on that sacrificial altar. But what if you actually don't have to do that? You don't have to sacrifice yourself. Call in someone who is in the lineage, who can sit on either side of you and actually tell you there's no one who is going to speak mean to you. It's actually not okay to speak mean to Serena. She actually deserves people to speak to her in a loving and kind way. She deserves people to come into her life who are even family members who will listen to her. Could you put yourself in that place and say, this is important?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that grandmother had somebody on her side, a grandfather. There was a grandmother standing behind her, a mother. Maybe people you don't know. You could call in, say, I would like to have a relationship with this grandmother, but I'm actually, my needs, I need to put my needs first, because I'm the living strength of my family tree. I'm a living limb. I don't want to break down. I need to nurture my own growth. I'm calling forth people in the lineage to stand with me and surround me. I do not want to abandon the grandmother, but I have to draw a boundary. No talking mean to me. I can't take it. I don't want to take it. So sometimes when you go to a family gathering and you show up because you feel like you have to, that's why we're here at Kalapa, because we want to be here. And we want to bring that back into our family, that we want to be there. And the ancestors, we want to invite in who strengthens us so we can live. Yeah. So Serena, I want to invite you to actually make an altar where you put yourself, for yourself. Put grandmother aside for a moment. Really put her picture down, put her to the side. Just know she's there. And then see what surfaces. See if you could bring someone, or if it's not someone you know, you can use also spirit animals, for example, or plants that you know have been important in your lineage to your family. And you could do that too. But whatever strengthens you, right now you need strengthening. Grandmother she can surface, but she will not take the center space. Oftentimes people that have been mean or controlling took the center space. Cannot take the center space if you're going to be mean to me. I need to live. I don't want to be mean. I want to be kind. I'm calling a community in Kalapa around me that supports me, that is strong. You can call on us. Say, stand with me, people, beautiful people, surround me. Let me know that what I want is not selfish, but it's only for the highest truth and for the life and strength of my family tree.
Thank you. I feel that my other grandmother on my other side can come in strongly, and they had a rapport when they were living. They were friends.
Yeah. Have that grandmothers take a stand with, maybe you can even have a shawl or something to drape around you. That could give you the feeling. There is oftentimes women use shawls as it is a protection, but it can also be a wing. You can fly with it. Find maybe a shawl or something if you approach the other grandmother, even on an altar, where you put a shawl around, and then picture that this other grandmother, that's the one that gives you strength. She has her arms around you. She stands behind you. She protects you. She helps you to have clear boundaries. She wants you to live. She's proud of you. Yeah.
It wouldn't be a shawl, it would be a wool flannel jacket.
Sure. That sounds lovely. Okay. Well, may you do that. Thank you so much for your courage of sharing that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Serena.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
I see you, Tess. Do you want to share?
Yes, and then I just saw the time and I was second guessing it. I'm so curious, Silke. My father was not always, but often quite, you could say, mean. And I've really struggled about like what to do, and I noticed it kind of, the question about it really sits with me a lot. And I really, yeah, I was really tuning in what you said about like just leave that person for a while and put your needs first. But I was just wondering if there was anything more you might add to that, or yeah, just so curious for your perspective.
Yeah, my father is similar, comes on very strong, and creating a little bit of spaciousness can help. And for me, it really helped me. Even this, you have a shawl right now around you. Oftentimes, a strong father actually wants to have a strong daughter. He's actually aware that he is overpowering the women. He actually wants you to be strong. It's maybe hard for them to turn to their women and say, I want you to be strong, because they have gotten into a habit, into ruts. But a strong father wants a woman to be strong. And if meanness or whatever, what is the underlying behind his approach? And if you take that shawl you have around you and you picture yourself as the eagle, the condor, whatever you need to be, the hawk, the owl, can also be the sparrow, but you have a presence. And that presence gives you a way of standing there. You're protecting your heart. At the same time, your heart is open, it's not closed. And there, if there's a shift in your own internal being, I believe something will be reflected to you from your own father. And so I would practice this, like, yeah, practice flapping your wings a little bit and feel your incredible power as woman. It's like there is a river of birds in migration, a nation of women with wings. And when you feel that and you open your wings, at one point, even your father will stand there and look at you in awe. And he might be speechless, even though he wants to say something. So I invite you to that. Own your beauty, stand strong, and don't let yourself be intimidated. And a shift will take place. We make a shift in our own being towards our fathers, and something will shift for them. And in their heart, they want us to be strong. Yeah.
Thank you, Silke.
Yeah.
And thank you to Yuli for inviting such a wonderful presence into our weekend.
Yeah. Thank you, Yuli. I feel so touched by all of you. And I'm so grateful for Kalapa and for technology, that it allows us to come together in this way, and yeah, for people like me, I have my owl feathers here, or I have little things around me, my nomies, my seed pouch, and whatever. It helps me to still feel the earth is right here. And then I touch the computer, and it's so amazing how your hearts, how your hearts can touch mine. And so there is something that we're being asked to see in this modern time, and using technology. Maybe it just gives us all a little bit more spaciousness, and we all become these winged ones, and we will soar together. And I'm grateful. So I'm going to bow to you all and give my thanks. And yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Yuli, my dear friend, and beautiful Mama Sita, beautiful Mama, and beautiful partner. And may you have all that you need as you are holding this space in this way, Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much,
All right.
Silke.
Thank you. Okay. Right. Goodbye, everyone. Bye.
Silke, check out the chat for a second before you leave. There was lots of beautiful gratitude for you.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you. Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, everybody. Okay. All right. Bye, Yuli. Love you.
Love you
Bye.
too. Bye.